One thing we know is that the Saints wanted a first-round pick for Taysom Hill, and they didn't get it. So the Saints this offseason signed Taysom Hill to a first-round tender. What that meant was that if anybody wanted to sign Taysom Hill to an offer sheet, the Saints could match. If the Saints chose not to match that offer sheet, then the Saints would get in as compensation a first-round draft pick as compensation for that team signing Taysom Hill. Well, not surprisingly, nobody signed Taysom Hill to a first-round tender. Why would you? For a backup quarterback in a slash role that fits New Orleans offense perfectly, but nobody has any concrete evidence to suggest he's going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. So it made a lot of sense. The Saints were trying to protect their asset. They were willing to pay for him, which they will, but also to try to fend off potential suitors from signing him to a contract. So here's what we know. He's got a one-year tender at $4.641 million. Now, he can no longer negotiate with other teams because the deadline was Friday. The deadline was Friday for NFL teams to sign restricted free agents to an offer sheet. Kareem Hunt was a restricted free agent. He's staying put as well. Matt Breida with the 49ers was not signed to an offer sheet as well. So none of these guys are switching teams. So we know Taysom's going to be with the Saints. But he's not yet signed his tender. So this is the question right now. He has a couple of options. Taysom Hill does. You either sign your first-round tender or hope the Saints sign you to a long-term contract. If neither of those happen and Taysom Hill doesn't sign his tender by June 15th, the Saints will have the right to lower their qualifying offer to him. So Taysom Hill is going to play this year on that contract, on that one-year deal at $4.641 million. The only real question is, will the Saints sign Taysom Hill to a long-term extension this offseason? And my guess is the answer is going to be no. You're going to sign Taysom Hill to this one-year tender, let him play it out at $4.6 million, and then next year, based on what happens with Drew Brees, you make your determination as to what you're going to do in the future. But this week is going to be so telling for Taysom Hill's future. If the Saints pull the trigger on a quarterback at 24, then Taysom Hill is done in New Orleans. Because if the Saints invest a first-round pick in a quarterback this week, then Taysom Hill will be on the roster this year in a slash role, and then he's gone after this season. If the Saints use a late-round pick, take a flyer on a quarterback, then the door is very much open for Taysom Hill to be the Saints quarterback next season, and maybe even the number 2 this year. The bigger question then becomes, do they sign a veteran free agent quarterback? You know, I've lobbied for Jameis Winston. I think essentially you're looking for a quarterback in the exact same role that Teddy Bridgewater was in this season. And in many respects, Sean Payton tipped his hand with Taysom Hill. When they signed Teddy Bridgewater to a one-year, $7.2 million contract, they told you, we don't think Taysom Hill is our number 2 guy. We think he's more valuable to us in a slash role. And if Drew Brees bangs his head on Aaron Donald's helmet and has to miss, or bangs his thumb on Aaron Donald's helmet and has to miss 5 weeks, we don't think Taysom Hill's a guy that can keep it together for 5 weeks. That's your answer. At least it was a year ago. Let's see what their answer is this year. And by the way, just to be abundantly clear, I am not good with Taysom Hill being the number 2 quarterback or being the starter for the Saints next year. He'll be 30 years old in August. He's not proven at all that he can be an NFL quarterback. He's thrown 15 career passes. He's had injury issues throughout his career, so how durable will he be if he's an every down player? And like I said, Sean Payton tipped his hand last year when they paid Teddy Bridgewater. So I love having Taysom Hill on the roster. I love Taysom Hill as this slash spark plug guy. A guy you can put in the single wing that can run a read option, that can throw the ball, that can catch passes, that can run the ball for you, that can help on special teams. Like, he is a valuable piece to the New Orleans Saints. No question. It's why they placed a first-round tender on him. But realistically, is he an option at quarterback for this team long-term? No. clip this because a year from now, some of you may laugh at me if he's the starting quarterback. No, you all will be laughing at me if he's the starting quarterback. But I'm quite confident to say he won't be. Sean Payton's already tipped his hand.